the wordsmiths behind various ads, blogs, and social media posts which grab our attention.
As broad as it gets, but that's also why I think it's an advantage.
So, Lesley is a writer by profession and theatre artist by passion.
But again, any content that you put out there, whether it's writing, video, anything, is still you creating some sort of content. And particularly as a content writer,
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our channel, No Herd Mentality. In this series of our podcast, we are exploring various career options. In today's episode, we'll talk about a profession that turns ideas into words, brings stories to life, and makes brands unforgettable. The profession I'm talking about is of content writing. The wordsmiths behind various ads, blogs, and social media posts which grab our attention. To take us through the journey of content writer, I'm delighted to have with me Mr. Lesley. Thank you, Lesley, for joining me today.
not a problem at all. It's thank you for having me over.
Yeah, our pleasure. So, Lesley is a writer by profession and theatre artist by passion. So, recently I had the privilege of watching one of his shows, and I must say it was awesome and strongly recommend to anyone who is interested in theatre. Lesley divides his time between Bangalore, which is his hometown, and in New Delhi, where he currently works. After working as a freelance content writer, he made an interesting shift to his career and has taken up a role of public relation with Ministry of Education, Government of India. In today's conversation, we will delve into Lesley's journey as a content writer. We'll understand what are the skills required to excel in this particular profession and what are the various interests and aptitude which a student should possess to thrive in this particular career. So with that note, let's begin our conversation. So Lesley, welcome once again and thank you for being a part of our podcast. So
Thank you.
Lesley, yeah. So my first question is the content writer or content writing is a very broad term. So can you help us to understand what does a content writer do or what are the different kinds of content writing and what this profession entails?
Sure. Thank you for your question. You're right. The term is as broad as it gets, but that's also why I think it's an advantage for anybody who wants to take content writing up, because it's not too niche, it's not too specific, and that is also why, as a content writer, you can switch between different roles, you can switch between different profiles and companies and so on. So I think content writing gives you that leg room to sort of experiment. What the role exactly is, I think that the name itself is self-explanatory. In a way, you're also creating content. You're also in the line of content creation, but not how we understand it today in terms of social media content creation. But again, any content that you put out there, whether it's writing, video, anything, is still you creating some sort of content. And particularly as a content writer, you're writing different kinds of text for the people that you're working for. To give you an example, my last role was that of a content writer before I made the switch. And there, um, the role, although my designation said content writer, was very, um, I wouldn't say exactly the same, but very similar to a data journalist, where we were writing articles, mostly at its core, we were writing articles. But then the articles were focused more on data that was given to us. And when I say data, I mean a featured article would say, uh, for example, two fishermen were found in Delhi this morning. That
Mhm.
would what a news article was, not a feature, not a news article would say. But then a data article would then look into factors like how many fishermen were there, at what time of day were they found in a locality, where exactly in Delhi were they found, do they have family living with them, what was the temperature when they came in Delhi, that kind of things. um, and it varies, right? Content writing varies. For example, the company that I was working for needed me to write articles, 300-word articles for them. In the same company, before I started writing proper articles, we were writing summaries of articles. Our task was to take articles that were available on the internet. Of course, there's a process based on which
Mhm.
you choose the articles and so on. But then my job as a content writer there was to write summaries of those articles. So that was the content that I was writing. Later on, it switched to writing original articles, 500, 600 word articles. So it shifts. It's never one particular thing. I know of some content writer friends who are focused only on social media and they need to write captions for posts that go on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram. Then they need to write video scripts. Of course, that's a script writer, but then at its core, you're creating content and you're writing.
Hmm.
So it's diverse, it's very vast, and for anybody who's keen on pursuing writing as a career, who's passionate about it, but not sure what kind of writing really gets them going, and what kind of writing or which format of writing they're really interested in, I'd urge you to try content writing because it helps you experiment with different kinds and formats of writing. So this is majorly what content writing is.
Yeah, yeah. I think yes, that makes very clear what is like content writer, and as you use the
So,
word content creator, which is I
mm.
think is a buzzword nowadays. Everyone is talking about content creation and all. Yeah. So thank you, Leslie, for that. Now, Leslie, we would like to hear your journey of getting into content writing.
Content writing was never on the horizon for me. It wasn't something that I aspired to do. I think when I was even studying back in college, I'm not even sure if content writing was as popular a
Hmm.
term or a career choice, or maybe I just wasn't aware. It's one of those two things.
Hmm.
Journalism was something that I always wanted to pursue, and I did. So my graduation was in mass media with a specialization in journalism, and then I, again with journalism in mind, I wanted to then study something, a subject which would then become the main topic that I would work on as a journalist. So journalism was always on my mind. My master's was in international studies, international
Hmm.
relations. That
Okay.
was my MA subject. And again, it wasn't with the idea of pivoting into, I don't know, maybe bureaucracy or think tanks. Journalism was still on my mind. It was only later on because while after I had finished my graduation in mass media, I landed up an internship with the Hindu, and I
Hmm.
was interning with them, and that was something that I thoroughly enjoyed. I really enjoyed the kind of work that I was given there, and the kind of work that I was creating there, the articles that I was writing. Luckily for me, that converted into a freelancing role with the Hindu. So right after I completed my internship, I was fortunate to have the editor reach out and say, "Would you then like to continue as a contributor, as a freelancer with us?" Which of course I more than happily took up. And that has been something that has stayed consistent all these years. So I'm talking about 2017, 2018.
Hmm.
That was when
Okay.
I interned with the Hindu.
Hmm.
And that was also my break, my year-long break. So after my graduation, I took a year-long break to intern in different places to figure what exactly I wanted to do. And
So that
then
was before your masters.
before my master's, before
Okay.
my master's. And
Okay.
this is again slightly off topic, but something that I'd um, recommend to everybody who's in that
Hmm.
stage of their, no, for that matter, in any stage of their life. If I
Hmm.
think if they feel they need to take a year break, a little
Hmm.
uh, hit pause for a while and reconfigure things, I think it works wonders. Again, I was fortunate to have a mother who let me do it. I do
Hmm.
know people whose parents may not be very comfortable with the idea of
Yeah.
doing it. But
Right.
I've always been, and I still am, I think, a confused person. There's always
Hmm.
more than a couple of options for me that I would like to choose for
Hmm.
personal or professional. So just slowing things down really helps. So I actually took two breaks. One was after my graduation, a year-long break, and then I went up for my master's. And after my master's, I took almost a year-long break again,
Mm-hmm.
to see what I wanted to do next.
Okay.
Uh, right. So the Hindu internship then converted into a freelance opportunity, and that continued even during my master's. So I did have it, it wasn't because I wasn't doing it full time. I wasn't a journalist. I never had a 9 to 5 journalist job with a publication or a news channel or anything. But I did have some exposure to um, writing, to writing articles, to reporting on events, to covering events and interacting with people. This again is something that I would highly recommend to anybody. Freelancing on the side, taking up projects on the, even if you're not freelancing with a single person full time, getting
Mm-hmm.
into the habit of taking up some short term project while you're studying or while you're working on a day job
Mm-hmm.
always helps to not just broaden your horizon outlook, but also to help you better understand what you enjoy. It may not, because even for me, after all these years of freelancing, um, uh, I may have narrowed down my prospects to a few options, but I'm still not sure which one I really want to pursue full time. So
Mm-hmm.
that sort of confusion always remains, but it always
Mm-hmm.
helps. So even when I was doing my master's, I was freelancing with the Hindu. And again, great exposure with the kind of projects that the editors give you and the kind of people you're interacting with.
Mm-hmm.
I completed my master's, and then I also realized, because um, um, I was studying the topics that I was studying, and I was working on the topics that I was working on as a freelancer, you also tend to understand where your um, shortcomings are and where your weak points are and where you need to sort of focus on. Um, so after I completed my master's, I realized that when it comes to matters related to finance and business and brands, I wasn't the most confident. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if this stems from my fear of math and
Mm-hmm.
my dislike for the subject. I'm not sure, maybe. But and again, as a freelancer for the Hindu, I was writing mostly on topics related to culture and
Mm-hmm.
film and sustainability, hospitality, and those kind of feature stories. So I was
Okay.
very comfortable and I enjoyed doing those things. But again, when it comes to writing about finance and business, I just wasn't interested, which is why after my master's, I wanted to take up a role which then would push me to familiarize myself with these topics.
Mm-hmm.
And the role that I then landed up after, it was with this UK-based market research company. And I took it up because it was I had to write about brands. I had to write about businesses. I had to write about those topics, related topics. So I took it up as a challenge, really, because I wanted to finally get myself to face things that I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that up, and that was the role that first got me into content writing. So my designation there at the company was content writing.
Okay.
So it's been a bit of a wave to
Mm-hmm.
reach here, because, like I said, content writing was never on the horizon, and
Mm-hmm.
working with a market research company was definitely not um, what I had in mind. But again,
Mm-hmm.
just, I don't know, keep your options open. You just never know what may interest you at what time.
Right, right. Yeah. So I think what you meant is you just went out of your comfort zone to,
Yeah,
challenge yourself and took the role which you were not very keen on, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So what kind of so when you say that you joined a UK based company, so what
Mhm.
kind of articles you have to write? So is it purely business or what kind of articles you have to write in there?
Um, this was a bit niche in terms of the kind of work.
Okay.
Um, so this is primarily a market research company. It's important for us to understand for like a minute what the company really
Ah,
does, and we could
sure.
talk about what it does, what
Hmm.
I had expected
Hmm.
to do. It's a market research company where the company has, it's like your Nielsen, for example. These are all competitors. So my company is called YouGov,
Mm-hmm.
and it's it's a market research company that has its own tools. It has its own ways to survey people across countries all over the world and get that data from them, and then offer this, like every market research company, then offer this data to other marketers and companies and businesses who are interested to tap into consumer research, which is huge. That market is huge today. So my job initially was to create content that would go on the website of the company, which would then interest our potential clients and existing clients for that matter. It was a public facing site anyway.
Uh-huh.
Um, so earlier it was summarizing articles that are already online,
Mm-hmm.
published by others. This could be from newspaper, this could be from news portals, this could be from niche subject-based websites, anything really. For example, we used to write, there were sometimes articles about how people could use artificial intelligence better in their business.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there were articles about so and so footwear brand in the world has gone bankrupt. And this is how the company performed in the last couple of years. Just giving you an example. So then we had to
Okay.
summarize these articles
Mm-hmm.
into it's kind of like your in shots that you
Mm-hmm.
get, the news alerts on your phone that you get. So it's very similar.
Okay.
But of course, this is more than just a couple of lines. The summaries were about 100, 200 words maximum.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the kind of content that I was working with earlier. But then thankfully, we pivoted to writing articles on our own. So creating original articles.
Okay.
Uh, that was interesting because then after a point, it gets mechanical, any sort of job. So
Hmm.
then once we switched to writing our own articles, it gives you that nudge to sort of think creatively on
Hmm.
how to use the data that we have. So when we're creating articles on our own, what we primarily did is, so we have all the data that we have in our database, the consumer research, and then we had to primarily look for news triggers that we can then explain using this data. So, for example, going back to the
Hmm.
footwear brand example that I gave, for
Hmm.
example, if today news came out that uh, X footwear brand has a new CEO, the
Hmm.
old CEO has left and there's a new CEO. So now we can use our data to see what people think of this brand today.
Hmm.
So, for example, if the past CEO led the company for 2 years, we can use our data to see how that company performed in those 2 years under that CEO.
Okay.
Whether sales went up, sales went down, whether advertising awareness that the company had was up, down, all of those things.
Hmm.
So that's a whole process. So, but this is just to help you understand the kind of articles that we were creating.
Right.
So that was what I was creating when I
Hmm.
left the company. But then again, because I was one of those people in the company who had a creative bend of mind, because
Hmm.
I was doing theater and all of that, I was also tasked with creating videos for the company.
Hmm.
So I was also part of the team. Of course, I didn't single-handedly do it, but as I was also part of the team that helped create self-explainer videos for our team. Um, so again, this just goes to show that if you have the right manager, if you have um, a skill set that is beyond what your job is expecting you to tap into,
Hmm.
and if you have a sense of initiative on your own, you can experiment even in your own role. You don't need to be focused on just what you're expected to do. So
Hmm.
this is what I was doing eventually when I left the company.
And Leslie, so how did this transition happen from UK-based company to now into with the Ministry of Education?
So it just started off as me wanting to look beyond an experiment because I had already spent close more than 3 years at
Hmm.
this. company. As much as I was grateful because I did end up working with subjects and writing articles that I wouldn't have thought of earlier. I was very comfortable in my space. So this job did get me out of my comfort zone,
Hmm.
and it did really push me to learn new things, and I'm grateful. I was also keen on seeing newer uh, spaces,
Opportunities.
gain opportunities, and see
Hmm.
if there are other things that I could learn and so on.
Hmm.
And as a writer, as a freelancer, as a journalist, you're on the other side of the fence, and public relation professionals are on the other side. So, I mean, there's a lot of collaboration, of course, but
Hmm.
it's a different, I feel, ball game on either side. So I just
Hmm.
wanted to see how the public relations side of things are. But again, to be on that was what intrigued me to take up the role after I was made aware of it. But
Hmm.
moving on to public relations was never again something on my agenda. I just
Hmm.
wanted to experiment and see if there were other things that I could try my hand with. And I was uh, lucky enough to have a professor of mine from my undergraduate studies
Hmm.
forward me this link, this
Okay.
job
Opportunity.
opening.
Hmm.
So I just took it up for the sake of it. I just sent in my application papers, um, took the interview for the sake of it
Hmm.
because no harm in trying. So just went for it.
Yes.
Of
Hmm.
course, got in later on. So again, like my previous endeavors, this isn't something that I had strategized to get or I
Hmm.
worked towards. Again, this was something that came my way,
Hmm.
and I just want to test new waters. So I
So, Leslie, I have a one question. You said that you took a break of 1 year between your master's and graduation, between your graduation and master's, and did internship. So, was that internship is a part of your graduation, or it's like by yourself you wanted to do that
I did it by myself.
by
It was
yourself?
part of my graduation.
Okay.
I have done internships as mandated by both my graduation course as well as my master's course. Both
Okay.
these courses mandated that we take up internships at some point in our 3 year
Hmm.
plus 2 year course,
Yeah.
respectively. But
Hmm.
the one that I took up in between during my
Hmm.
break was completely out of self interest. That was me wanting to.
Okay.
And also, if you're taking a break,
Hmm.
I mean, do whatever you'd want to clear your mind, of course,
Hmm.
but keeping yourself occupied in some way or the other, I think helped me. Let's put it that way. It helped me. It
Hmm.
may not help everybody.
Right.
Maybe just not doing anything and reflecting on yourself might help others.
Hmm. Right.
But I interned.
And Leslie, if I may ask, your graduation you have done in mass media, is it?
Yes, mass
You
media.
have done in mass media, and your
Mass,
master's in international relations.
yes.
So this is your pathway or your educational background. Like suppose a student who is in class 10th or ninth or
Mm,
10th and he wants to
mm,
pursue or become a content writer. So what
mm.
would be the ideal pathway in terms of subject streams you suggest for a student? Is there a particular subjects he or she should be taking and this is the pathway they should follow?
Content writing?
Yes.
My honest answer is going to be no, because of a couple of things. The whole it all depends on your adaptability, really. Most of what I've learned professionally today is me learning on the job, and I think professionals senior to me and people who've been working for even longer will tell you that almost all the learning happens on the job.
Hmm.
There's nothing really, not to say qualifications are useless, definitely not.
Hmm.
But there is just so far that classroom learning will take you. Because, like I pointed out, uh, a good week or two or even three sometimes at all my internships, I've spent just trying to make sense of what's happening around me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I've had my managers lash out at me. I've had multiple instances where I've not done a good job, where I've messed up and so on, and that gradually then takes me to a better place at the
Mhm.
somewhere in the middle of the experience. So I really think, because then, like for example, even the internships I took up, which were journalism oriented, while I was pursuing journalism during
Mhm.
my undergrad, um, because I was studying journalism, that should have been a very smooth ride, because I
Mhm.
was studying the things that I was then expected to do in the newsroom. But that wasn't the case at all. Some of my most embarrassing moments were during those internships. So I honestly don't think um, taking up a particular subject or
Mhm.
a degree or a course would have make things better. Because even now I see a lot of my colleagues and friends, for example, some of them have studied engineering and are now writing content, working as content writers. So it really doesn't matter.
Okay.
What does matter is
Hmm.
experience. I
Hmm.
think if you're in your eighth or ninth, I know for a fact I wasn't really thinking about my career when I was back there in
Hmm.
Saturdays. Um, but if you're somebody watching and if you're keen on seeing what it really is like, um, I think take up a freelancing role or an internship that you could do on the side. Internship may be difficult, I'm assuming, uh, when you're in school, but taking up some short-term project that you could devote an hour or two after school every day, perhaps,
Hmm.
could help. Not with
Hmm.
anything, but just to help you understand if this is something that you'd want to pursue
Right.
later on. And content writing jobs are available plenty.
Hmm.
If you go up online, LinkedIn, if you go on any of a simple Google search even will throw up so many content writing opportunities, not just in India, but those you could work on remotely as well,
Hmm.
across borders, sorry. So
Hmm.
it really isn't difficult to land a content writing role. And
Okay.
that works better than studying to become a content writer, because I'm honestly clueless about what you could study to
Yeah.
become
Yeah.
content.
So yeah. So what I understand is there is no like prerequisite subjects as such to become a content writer. So it's like based on person's interest and I think
Yeah.
skills and how passionate he or she is about doing this particular. So they can figure it out. But there is no a set education background as such for becoming a content writer, right? As you
At
said
least
that there are
none that I've seen in any of
okay.
these content writing job postings and
Hmm.
listings. I have not seen any prerequisite. There's a prerequisite for the ones that I've seen. There's a prerequisite for your work experience. I mean, a lot
Mhm.
of these content writing roles maybe expect you to have, say, a year of content writing experience or 6 months,
Mm. Mm.
but there are equal, if not more, number of opportunities where they're more than happy to accept freshers and people with zero content writing experience.
Okay.
So, really, that's your way to go.
So, I think one of the question you already said, as and when it's required, a person should do an internships, right? Wherever it's available for a content writing, or if they want to pursue. So, if there are internships, they should kind of try to take it up. Okay, so now, as you said, there is no particular set, education background for this. But do you think taking a courses like in mass comm is really would be helpful for a person who wants to pursue this profession?
I think that way any course would, but uh, I'll talk about my mass media course.
Mm-hmm.
It gave us a very holistic uh, introduction to the world of media,
Mm-hmm.
um, because there was also theory where we were studying from books and textbooks, but there was also a lot of practical application where we were introduced to photography and editing and photo editing, software like Photoshop and InDesign and Premiere Pro. Um, but there was also a lot of uh, discussion on history, on the on the cultural fabric of India and the world and city and all of that. So there's a mix of everything. I think where all of this helps in content creation is one, when you're writing, when you're creating, when you're working as a content writer, you could always use other skills to add to it.
Hmm.
Like I did in my previous role, I was writing articles, but then I was also creating videos for those articles. So if you have that skill, why not? You could
Hmm.
always use it. Um, when you're learning about a certain phenomena or people or the history of a place or anything like that, those kind of learnings again help you think more creatively when you're writing content, because this isn't just about content writing. This is about, I'm sure you'd agree too, this is about any job, and that any job where it tends to get mechanical after a certain point. Yeah,
Hmm.
it becomes very templated. So in order to break out from there is when you need to rely on your own creativity to get
Right.
out. But
Hmm.
I think that kind of exposure, you could also just gain by keeping an open mind
Hmm.
and being inquisitive. So just, if you read more, if you watch more quality
Hmm.
stuff, all that informs your creativity when you're working.
As you're talking about creativity, um, so the creativity, how important that is. I'm sure it's a heart and soul of content writer. You have to be creative. So
Mm.
how a person can nurture his or her creativity and generate fresh ideas.
It's also creativity is subjective. Um,
Yeah.
I feel. Um, and I'm saying this after 3 years of working as a content writer,
Hmm.
because there are times you can be very uh, creative with what topic you want to write on, and uh, how you want to write it. Example, for example, in my previous role, apart from writing content, another task of ours was creating questions that we would then um, um, float to our panels
Mm-hmm.
for them to answer.
Okay.
So that's where you can be super creative, because
Hmm.
people would, my teammates, to be very honest, I wasn't too great at it, but I had colleagues who were phenomenal with their creativity there. Um, and they would ask questions on such random but intelligent things, taking something um, as ordinary as the clothes you wear, but then
Mm-hmm.
add a little bit of technology there. For example, they wouldn't just ask, "What kind of clothes do you like wearing in December?" But
Mm-hmm.
they would ask, I don't know, questions like, "Would you let artificial intelligence or chatbots help pick out clothes for you and
Hmm.
help choose colors for you?" And so
Hmm.
you can be so creative there,
Right.
I feel. Um, that's one. And when I say creativity subjective, it's also because a lot of times you need to function in a certain box. I mean, you still need to keep in mind um, the template the company is working with, the
Right.
format the company is working with. You can't go berserk. But that also then challenges your creativity, because then you need to stay in a certain square and
Hmm.
yet think out of the box,
Hmm.
ironically. So that really challenges your creativity. I say this out of conviction because I've experienced it myself. It's really how much you're willing to lap up in terms of your curiosity. Um, you just got to expose yourself to newer ideas as
Hmm.
often as you can, if not every day. Reading, I don't necessarily mean books, but
Hmm.
also reading as much as you can online. There's so much that is available in terms of opinions, in terms of discussions, in terms of what people are bringing to the table. There's just so much that you can consume. So the more you consume, the more I feel your creativity is fueled. And this is what these past 3 years have taught me.
Right.
Um, so there's ample scope for you to be
Hmm.
creative.
And are there any tools or softwares which are being used for writing and editing right now with AI and ML around? Are there any
Yes.
specific tools and which you use?
Um, I see a lot of content writers nowadays rely on AI tools like ChatGPT and
Hmm.
Gemini and all
Okay.
that. I think that's a tricky space to be in
Yeah.
because I mean I'd suggest use such tools only um, to perhaps inspire you
Hmm.
to um, maybe if you're stuck in a writer's block, maybe if you're
Yeah.
not getting the first line, maybe if
Hmm.
you're not getting that headline going,
Yeah. Right.
maybe rely on those tools to give you that kickstart.
Hmm.
But as a content writer, I would never rely on an AI tool to write an entire article for me.
Hmm.
So then that's not something that I don't see that also happening around me a lot. I mean, I
Hmm.
do see my colleagues rely on AI tools to get that jump start, to
Hmm.
maybe get that idea. Maybe if you have a bunch of ideas that you can feed into an AI tool and then say, okay, which one has the most data available online, or which
Hmm.
one of these topics um, is most likely to click with people aged between 18 and 20 years old, for example.
Hmm.
Uh, but that's about it. I mean, if anything, AI tools can be a great aid, and they are good, really
Hmm.
good tools to help you,
Yeah.
but not to complete your task for you. I think
Right.
that distinction
Right.
helps.
So it's as a, I mean, something to aid with or assist you with. Right. Yeah. And so, so what are the biggest challenges you have faced in content writing? Is there any biggest challenge which you have faced? You
Mm,
think is the biggest challenge in content writing?
there have been times I think I've gone a bit overboard with the creativity bit, and I've gone, okay, let's do this, let's do that, let's write about this topic, or let's do whatever. And
Hmm.
then, I mean, thankfully, we have people with more experience managing you and guiding you. So
Hmm.
then they help you rein it in, and then
Hmm.
um, give a more definite form to your idea.
Hmm.
Another challenge that I faced was perhaps not thinking ahead.
Hmm.
Uh, Even when you're writing content, when you're writing articles, it's important to understand that it isn't always just about, yeah, I have an idea and I can write something about it and then it goes out. It You also need to look into other things such as the shelf life of those articles. Like, will that article become irrelevant in a couple of months?
Hmm.
Uh, will that article then rub some people the wrong way?
Hmm.
Will some people not maybe like it? Is that article factually correct? I mean, that's the basic, if it's
Yeah.
factually correct or not. Um, will that article contradict something that we've already said before?
Hmm.
So I can't write an article today saying XYZ brand is uh, morally bankrupt, or it's just a terrible place to work at. Where just a month ago I've written an article saying this company is the place to be at, and you need to
Hmm.
aspire to be there. So you need to be careful there. There's another funny thing where uh, I think a CEO had of a company had tragically passed away in an accident, and I suggested to my editor saying, okay, we have the tools to track the performance of this company, so let's then say, how did this company perform under this CEO? And then my editor in the next second went, okay, for instance, if you were to see, according to our tools, that the company has not performed well under the CEO, will it be right to say this CEO who has now is no more, the company didn't perform well under him? And the company was, the sales had dipped under this. I mean, how right would that be?
Hmm.
Um, so these kind of judgment calls, I'm afraid, comes with experience.
Yeah.
It's not something that you get. I mean, you can always hope to get it as soon as possible, but some things, it's just experience that gets you. So these are my challenges. I can think of many actually, but broadly speaking, I think
Yeah.
these. But again, nothing that's impossible to overcome.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of thought process before, finalizing an article or thinking of an article or thinking of writing anything for that sake.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And okay. So my next question would be, as we initially discussed, this is a content writing is a very broad field. But just for our viewers, can you just name some of the career pathways? Right? When I say career pathway, in the sense, okay, so these are the industries or these are the places where a person can maybe get hired or work as a freelancer. So what are those like companies or what kind of industries would be?
I think they'd be everywhere. Literally every. I mean, this is an exercise I urge everybody watching to sort of take up. Think of the first two or three brands or companies that come to your mind, as big or small as they can be. And you could go online and enter the name of that brand and then maybe write content writer or
Mhm.
content writer vacancy or content writer opportunity, or maybe just content writer. And you'll
Mm,
find definitely one of those two things. One, either openings in those companies for content writers, or two, LinkedIn profiles of content writers in those companies. Um, I think 9 out of 10 companies would have this. The only exception being um, super companies that work with in super sensitive fields. That is something that is an exception, I think. But apart from that, every other company has that. I remember, I don't want to drop names in our discussion, but I remember um, looking up companies in the big four,
mhm,
or the tech companies as well, um, and they all had one department or the other, because a lot of these content writing roles, they sit within the larger marketing departments of these
mm,
companies. And I don't know which company today exists without a marketing function. It's
mm.
it's
Yeah.
integral to every other industry. So I honestly, even again, not dropping names, but even educational organizations,
Mhm,
institutions in our company, some of the biggest ones,
mm,
need writers in some form or the other. These could be social media executives, social media writers for social media. These could be writers who could write out brand communications for that company. These could be writers who write out proposals for the company, or emailers. There's just so much, because there's just so much writing to do in general,
yeah.
um, that there's no dearth of
Mm,
opportunities there. So in terms of pathway, or in terms of which options, again, it's
mm,
endless.
yeah.
You'll find these roles across all industries.
Yes. Yeah. I think very versatile kind of a job where you find, irrespective of what segment or what industry, as you said, it's like starting
Yes.
from the tech to educational, all kind of
Yeah.
industries will have a role for content writer per se,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so now, what advice would you give to students? Because again, when we talk about content writing, it's about writing skills, right? So how they can improve their writing skills?
Practice.
Hmm.
That's the only thing I remember. Because I have a mother who used to be um, an English teacher, and she also taught the social sciences. My um, foundation when it comes to language, English
Hmm.
particularly, was rather robust because of her. And I think I also need to credit our family genes for me not being great at math, because nobody in my family is. But I had that grounding that foundation when that kickstart when it came to English. Um, and as a practice, I remember so distinctively well, even in school, there used to be an extra effort to even write our answers well, especially
Hmm.
with social sciences. There's so much that you can write, and there's so many ways in which you can write it. Um, if you're in school and if you're just starting out, that is one place that you can really tap into. Just try and see if you're writing any piece,
Hmm.
be it your answers in school, be it your report, be it anything. Maybe see how you could make it more creative, how you could add real life examples to it, and how you could make that piece of writing as clear as possible. This is something that I learned and I was taught early on, which is um, communicating in a way that's complicated serves no purpose at all, be it speech or writing,
Hmm.
particularly in writing, because you're not there in front of that person to sort of help them resolve their doubts and go, okay, you didn't understand this line, let me explain it to you better.
Hmm.
Because when you write when you write something and you put it out, that piece is going to do all um, your talking for you. So just be very clear with what you want to say. Try and focus on limited ideas in one piece. Don't cram up about 5 to 10 ideas in a single piece. If you're talking about um, food that people can enjoy in Bangalore,
Hmm.
uh, either maybe talk about food that they can currently enjoy today when they go in, or talk about food that Bangaloreans have enjoyed all these years, or
Hmm.
talk about food that has probably originated in Bangalore. And these three ideas itself are different, diverse topics.
Right.
Writing a article with the history of food, with the current state of food, with eating habits of Bangaloreans all in one can will just confuse people. So limited
Hmm.
ideas, be as clear in your writing as possible, and add, this has helped me personally, which is add your personal examples to it.
Hmm.
um, because any form of communication needs to be personalized, is what I strongly feel. And some of my best writing, not as told by me, but when the kind of writing that people have sometimes come up and said, oh, I liked what you did here, like what you've written there, is when there's been an effort to make it personalized. So if I'm talking about food in Bangalore, maybe start the article with an instance where you stepped out to eat something and you happened to come across this hotel or
Hmm.
restaurant you weren't expecting to find. And
Hmm.
then you could link that anecdote with the rest of what your article says. So keep it personalized, keep it as simple as possible, and keep it focused.
Hmm.
These are some things that you can, and these pointers you can then apply to any writing that you do.
Hmm.
Even when you're writing social media captions, not everything needs to be in abbreviations. Not
Hmm.
everything needs to be. I mean, I understand a lot of these captions are limited. A lot of these platforms limit your captions in terms of character and whatever. But even if it's just a line or two, um, try and make every word fight for its place in that sentence, um,
Hmm.
instead of unnecessarily cramming it up with words.
Yeah. Hmm. I think very well said. You have to be very focused and choose a topic, one idea or a topic,
Mhm.
and then develop your writing on that. That's
Yes.
something which one has to kind of follow. So, Leslie, do you recommend any books or blogs or any materials for aspiring, writers to read through to develop their skills?
I'm still in the process of that. Honestly, I've been a bookworm all my life. I was introduced to books very early on, by my mother, and my earlier birthday and New Year and Christmas gifts were just books
Right.
and and volumes of it. Um, so when I say books, I don't honestly have a book that could help people with content writing and
Hmm.
say, okay,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
reading a variety of authors is there's no क्या कहते हैं, replacement to that. I mean,
Mhm.
that really helps you look at other people's writing styles. And
Right.
it really helps you to see how other people approach similar topics, but so differently. Uh,
Hmm.
that is something books will gift you with.
Right.
And then you can choose to take a bit of everybody's writing style and create your own, or that
Hmm.
could help you inspire your own unique style of writing. But
Mhm.
that cannot happen without exposure. That cannot happen in a bubble. You need to familiarize yourself with other writing styles and other forms of communication, really. That really helps. Um, and in terms of books, I've always read uh, more of fiction than nonfiction. I've always read more of. There was a phase in my life not too long ago where I was obsessed with war fiction. So
Mhm.
stories set in wartime, but fictionized.
Okay.
Um, all we imagine as light. Oh, I forget the name. Maybe I could drop it in the caption later. But um, I remember another book called Gentleman in Moscow.
Mhm.
Again, um, great read. Uh,
Hmm.
but again, the bottom line is, irrespective of what you're reading, fiction, non-fiction, um, just get into the habit of
Habit.
consuming reading
Hmm.
styles, writing
Right.
styles of other
Hmm.
people.
Okay. So a lot of reading is something which is like irrespective of what, not a particular author or particular writing, but any kind of reading will help you to develop
Is
your
what helps
writing
me
skill. Yeah.
personally, but uh, maybe for somebody, reading blogs online could help. Maybe for
Hmm.
somebody, reading newspapers could help.
Right. Right.
Help me as well, reading newspapers.
Hmm. Hmm.
So those kind of things could be of help. This is just what helped me personally.
Right. Yeah. So basically, a person has to be in the habit of reading
I
any
think
kind
so.
of things.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And is it possible for students? So this is going to be my last question, and then it's
No, no,
open
of
to you if
course.
you want to
Yeah.
suggest. So is it not essential, I would say, but would it help a student if a person, if he or she is interested in writing, if they build their portfolio? Like as you said, they can apply for internship if they're interested. So is it would it help if they have their portfolio of maybe small writings or any summaries of some articles and all? Would it help them?
I think it definitely would.
Hmm.
An advice that I got sometime long time back, which I didn't really actively act on for a long time, was to write blogs, because mm, it isn't necessarily a cakewalk to get published.
Hmm.
Um, Even if it's with newspapers and news publications and online portals, if you get a byline and if you can end up writing an article, great. And there are a lot of ways to do it. Even with social media, there are so many uh, portals that are focused on, say, Instagram or Twitter or YouTube or whatever. And writing for those portals and having your name appear them is relatively easy than it was, say, a couple of years ago,
Hmm.
where, for example, when I started out, I desperately wanted a byline in a newspaper or in an established publication. And that took a while. And that was via internships. But before that, something that you all can do is write blogs. That'll not only get you in the habit of writing, but it'll also help you present a body of work to people who want to see it. And they just want
Hmm.
to see, show me some of your writing, or what kind of writing do you usually do. You can just send them a link
Hmm.
and show them this work. So writing blogs on subjects that you're very passionate about or you're interested in always
Hmm.
helps. It helps the employer to know what kind of writing they can expect from you.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. Okay, Leslie. So thank you so much for your time. I think
Not at
we
all.
had a wonderful conversation and learned a lot about content writing. As such, it's a very versatile field and very broad prospects it has, considering a person if he or she is interested in it. And what you have highlighted is like definitely a person has to be in a reading habit, and which helps him or her to understand the writing skills or help him to develop a writing skills. And internship is something which a person or a student can think of, and also have to be very what I understand is a person has to be very curious to learn new things, so that he or she can explore or try different ways of writing or creating content for that sake.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so
Thank
thank
you for the
you,
great
thank you
session as
so
well.
much.
Thank you for having
Yeah.
me.
Hey viewers, do let us know how did you find this episode on content writing? As you know, in this series of our podcast, we are exploring various career options. So please do let us know what are the careers or professions you want to know about. We would love to hear from you and create podcast on those careers on priority basis. So if you like the episodes which we create, we request you to share, subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Thank you.